One of the problems in reading the Gospels is reading the Gospels. We've read them all, right? And we've heard them all for years. So we know all about everything that's going to happen as the narrative goes along. We know beforehand. And that's a problem, because each gospel is a separate document, a separate piece of literature written by a different author with a different purpose in mind. It's not supposed to be a biography of Jesus. It's supposed to be telling us about God's activity in the world through Jesus, addressed to various audiences by different authors. For instance, when Jesus says to the disciples, the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected and be killed, we all know what's going to happen, don't we? Crucifixion. But the disciples that Jesus was talking to in Luke's gospel did not know he was going to be crucified, because he didn't say so. He hasn't yet in Luke's gospel specified what kind of death he is going to undergo. We know, because we've heard it so often before. So then when he says immediately after that to everybody that's following him, if anyone wants to become my disciple, let them take up their cross and daily and follow me. What is he talking about? Is he asking them to undergo martyrdom like he did because he was faithful to his Father and to his mission in life and to the beliefs that he was instilling in us? I don't think so. I don't think he's calling on any of us to be martyrs, because he says, let them deny themselves and take up their cross every day. Well, you don't get martyred every day. It's a one-off thing, you know. Once you're martyred, and you don't do it again. So he's calling us to something different. I think what he's talking about is living in the kingdom, living in the reign of God, which is sacrificial living, which if to live in the reign of God means to give up my own will, my own desires. He says, don't put up with the cross daily, take up the cross daily as a way of living. And of course the next question is, what is the cross for each one of us? Well, I can tell you what it isn't. It isn't your arthritis. Okay? It's not your child who's on drugs. It's not a broken relationship that you're suffering through. It's not the loss of employment. They're things that happen in human life. And I hope we patiently approach them like Christians and don't rebel and get nasty about them. But they're not the cross that Jesus is talking about. He's talking about doing those things, saying those things which are necessary to live in the reign of God, which he has come to inaugurate in his person. Just like he did. He told the truth. He told people how much God loved them, for instance. He told them that they didn't have to earn God's approval, God's love. They had to respond to it, to the gift of God himself in the person of Jesus. They had to respond. Now, when they meet suffering in life, of course, they bear it patiently. But he's talking about taking up the cross, not just putting up with crosses. And that means living as he taught us to live in the reign of God. And basically, if you get that down to its lowest common denominator, it means living in a way in which we are constantly looking out for the welfare of others. Constantly looking out for each other's welfare on all levels. Sometimes that might mean doing things that we find embarrassing. That's a cross. Sometimes it means going out of our way, giving up our time, giving up our possessions for the sake of someone who is suffering lack of possessions or lack of love. It's a really serious way of approaching the life he has called us to, and not just sort of skimming the surface of Christian living, being nice, as people say. God did not call us to be nice. He called us to take up our cross daily and follow him. And God said that through the words of Jesus. And so as we get into these readings in this post-Pentecost period, which lasts until December, we're going to hear a lot of things from Jesus, and we want to try to hear them afresh. Because it's all, in a sense, old hat for us. We've been listening to this for years, but sometimes we never get below the surface because we're not listening intently enough, and perhaps we're not into our scriptures enough to ask questions about what Jesus was really saying here. Well, he's not calling you to martyrdom, but he is calling you and me to love each other, to take care of each other, even at the expense of our own selves. And that's a cross.